Now let's talk about batch running the tests in TestNG. Okay, till now we have made three, four different tests, and we have seen the usability and the various features of TestNG. I can run each test individually. What if I want to run all of these tests? Okay, to run all of these tests together, we need a file known as testng.xml. Fine, I'll take that XML file from one of the projects over here, copy it, and I will paste it under the module 9 project. This is my testng.xml file. It's an XML file, right, in which you can mention all the test cases in your particular project. This is the name of my test suite, that this is the test suite, and you can give any test suite name. For example, I'll call it as learning TestNG. Then you can give the name of your tests in the order in which you want to execute them. For example, the first test is application test, and it is inside the package. You have to give the fully qualified name. It is inside the package test cases. This was the package name, right? Test cases. It is inside the package test cases dot application test. Okay, right. And you can give other tests also over here. The second test is login test. It is test cases dot, the class name is login test. Then you have the registration test, test cases dot registration test. Now there are a few things which you have to be careful about. This name has to be the exact name, package name followed by the name of the class. This name can be any name. And lastly, make sure in the XML file you are closing all the tags which you are opening. XML is a very sensitive kind of a document. If you forget to close any tag or miss out any tag, it will not work. Okay, right. For example, sometimes people forget or delete this conical bracket like this, and when you run it, you will get an error. Alright, so how do you run it in a batch? You right click on your testng.xml and select as, say, run as testng suite. So when you run it as testng suite, so all the tests will get executed. You see that? Everything gets executed. Right. And if you look at the reports which are generated, you have to refresh this folder, and if you open index.html, you will see all the results over here, but it's not a very impressive report again. Okay, we'll be seeing extent reports. Alright, fine. Now you don't see the failures over here because the failures actually happened in the after method function. Okay, so we'll see how to report failures. We are not at all interested in this report. We'll see that. Fine. Now this is one test suite file having multiple tests under it. And all the tests, they run serially in this particular file. Now TestNG can also be used to run the test cases parallelly. Okay, for example, I have a project over here, parallel_testing. Okay, I'll just explain you with a very simple example. Okay, we have got three tests inside this project. Test A is there. Fine. Test A writes, you write over here test A starts, you give a break for 2 seconds, and then you write test A ends. Similarly, test B also, these are dummy tests. Test B starts, you give a break of 2 seconds, and test B ends, and test C also, like this. In testng.xml of this project, okay, I have kept all the three tests. Fine. And when I run this, when I right click on testng.xml, I select run as testng suite. So you will see that it prints test A starts, A ends, then it will start B, and then it will start C and end C. So all the three tests, they get executed serially. But If I give an attribute over here with the suite name, parallel equals to tests, then all the tests in this particular suite, A, B, and C, will be invoked parallelly by TestNG. Okay, so when you run this program, you'll see that A, B, and C are executed parallelly and they end after some time, A, C, B. So C ends slightly before than B. So you cannot predict the order actually. But when you run this test, all the three tests, say A, C, and B, start and then they end. They are invoked parallelly. If I don't give parallel equal to tests over here, then they are invoked serially and they execute in a serial order. A starts and then B and then C. So TestNG can be used to execute the test cases parallelly as well by just adding this attribute. Then what is the use of Selenium GRID? If TestNG can simply help you to run the test cases parallelly, then like in the below modules, we have got the GRID module, Selenium GRID for model 26, which can help you to execute the tests parallelly as well. Then what is the use of that? Look, if you want to run tests parallelly in a single machine, I have got this, my machine, I want to run the tests parallelly in a single machine, then I can use TestNG. TestNG can invoke the tests parallelly. But if I want to set up a system like that I have got a centralized machine and I connect various machines to it and I have got different systems and I want to run the tests parallelly in different systems, then we use Selenium GRID. In GRID, we set up a hub and we set up various nodes. Okay, what happens is that we keep the code in the hub. Only hub consists of the code. We keep the code on the hub. The code is TestNG code. TestNG code, what it does is that it sends all the test cases parallelly to hub. Okay, this is TestNG, blue lines. TestNG will invoke all the test cases parallelly and all the test cases parallelly will hit the hub in GRID. And hub will decide which test case to run on which node. You don't have control over that. Okay, so Selenium GRID is just a facilitator. It will decide that which node has to be allocated to which test case. The invocation of the test cases the parallel invocation of the test cases will be done by TestNG. Okay, so this is important. Fine, and we'll be seeing that how does it happen. We have seen how you can invoke the tests parallelly in TestNG. Okay, you just have to write parallel equals to tests over here. Okay, now you can also have multiple test suite files. It is not necessary that you just have all the tests mentioned in a single test suite. You can have multiple test suite files as well. When we do the frameworks, I will explain you how you can have multiple test suites in a single project. So this is just something which is there to make you understand how stuff works. Okay, right. Now coming back to our project over here. Okay, learning TestNG model 9. Over here I have mentioned all the three tests in testng.xml and they get executed. If I write over here parallel equals to true or parallel equals to tests, sorry. So all the tests will be invoked parallelly. Sorry. Just a minute. Yeah. So when I write parallel equals to true, so all you will not have control which is running when. So all of them will execute immediately. Okay. Now one more thing. When you have a data provider, in login test, we have a data provider. This data provider will send this particular row to the test case first and this after that and this after that. What if I want to run the test parallelly with all the three data sets? This cannot be done with testng.xml. TestNG.xml tells you invoke the test cases parallelly. So it will invoke all these three test cases which are mentioned over here, these three files parallelly. But when it invokes the login test will execute serially with all the three data sets. What if I want to execute the login test parallelly with all the three data sets? Then in data provider, you have an attribute known as parallel equals to true. So if I just run my login test, all the three sets will execute parallelly. See, U2 P2 gets first, U3 P3, and all of them will be invoked parallelly on the test case. Okay, so this can also be done. You can invoke the test case, all the iterations of the test case with different data sets parallelly as well. Okay, right. Now moving ahead. Okay, moving ahead, we will move to see how to generate better reports, run with Ant and all everything. Okay, look, the thing is, whatever I had to teach you in TestNG, the major things are over. Let me talk about Ant, and then we will see more things like grouping the test cases, prioritizing. Okay, data providers for multiple test cases can also have the same data provider. Okay, and TestNG Maven configuration and a lot of things we'll see. Let us talk about Ant first. Okay, and also talk about the advantages of TestNG over JUnit. Yes, look, TestNG is better than JUnit. That's what I feel. It's got better support for parallel execution of the test cases. If you want to execute the tests parallelly, it's got better support. It's got better reporting. Okay, in a nutshell, you can generate better reports like extent or XSLT reports with TestNG. Fine, rather than in JUnit. And in Selenium, if you talk about Selenium, then most of the companies these days are using Selenium with TestNG rather than JUnit. Out of TestNG and JUnit, you don't need to learn both of them, though I have explained both of them. Training video 8 is on JUnit. You just have to learn one of them. Okay, you can learn TestNG, it's better. Fine. Now, using TestNG with Selenium, this is something you will come to know, okay, as we proceed with the course, because this is generally the question by everyone, that how do you use TestNG with Selenium? You've explained everything. You have explained the concept of TestNG, but how do you incorporate that with Selenium? It's very easy. As we proceed with the course, you will come to know. Okay, right. Now let us talk about Ant. What actually Ant is. Sometimes you want to run the program or your project from the command prompt. Okay, right. Because sometimes you have got, say, Linux system or a Unix shell where you don't have the user interface. You have to execute the program from there. Or sometimes you would want to build a bat file to run the tests. Bat file means an exe file. You double click on that exe file and the tests will start executing. Or you want to integrate this particular framework with Jenkins. Okay, I'll talk about Jenkins later on. Then again, you will have to use Ant or Maven. Right. Let us talk about Ant first. What is an Ant? Ant is primarily a build and compile tool. Build and compile tool. Look, what do you mean by build and compile tool? In nutshell, you have Eclipse, right? What is Eclipse? Eclipse helps you to write the programs and run them through a very good user interface. You can see everything, you can add the jar files in any project and all, and you can start working with Eclipse. Okay, right. Ant is something which is similar to Eclipse, but it helps you to run the programs from command prompt. Okay, exactly same. Eclipse helps you to run through a user interface. Ant is something which will help you to run through command prompt. First of all, the first thing which you need to do is that you need to download Ant. Just go to Google and type download Ant. Oh, sorry. It is Apache tool, Apache Ant, or you can also type download Apache Ant if you don't get the right results. Go to the first link. It's a tool by Apache and it's got no exe file, nothing. You just need to download the latest zip file, okay, which is this zip. All right, and once you download it, like I have it already, I guess. Yeah, I have this Apache Ant. Fine, we'll talk about Maven as well in coming time in few more lectures. Okay, now if I talk about Apache Ant, this is the folder which you have downloaded. What you need to do is that you need to copy the path of this folder. There is also a bin folder in this. Don't go inside bin, just copy the path of this particular Apache Ant folder on your machine. Go to my computer, properties. We are configuring Ant in our system right now. Okay, go to advanced system settings and click on environment variables. Fine, you need to create an environment variable known as Ant home. Under system variables, click on the new button and create a environment variable known as capital Ant underscore home. It should be in uppercase, and give the path of Ant in your machine. Okay, right, like I have Ant in F drive temp as well, so it's okay. The latest one I have it over here, right? So you give the path of Ant, then scroll down and you will see a path variable. This would be a pre-existing variable. Fine, you edit this variable, go to the end of this variable value, go to the end, don't fiddle with it, it's very critical. Put a semicolon in the end, semicolon, give the path of Ant followed by /bin. You have to give the path of the bin folder of Ant. Okay, the path of bin folder of Ant, and if you have a command prompt opened, just close the command prompt and open it again and give the command Ant, type Ant over here. If you get an error message like build file build.xml does not exist, if you get this error message, that means Ant has been configured perfectly fine on your machine. Everything is fine. Okay, if you don't get this message, then you have done something wrong in the configurations. Please go back in the video and check it again. You have to make the variable Ant home and edit the path variable. Okay, right. If you are stuck, you can post the question in the forum as well. The link to download the code and the link to join the forum is in your account. You can download the complete code as well, which I'm making in these tutorials. You can download from the link, download code over here in your account. Okay, fine. Now, moving ahead. Ant is configured properly on the machine. The next thing is that you need to execute the project, this project through Ant. You want to execute testng.xml. To execute the project through Ant, we use a file known as build.xml. You can create this file on your own as well, or you can take mine. It's better you take mine because it's not very easy to create it. Okay, I'll explain you what this file does. Okay, this build.xml is the heart of Ant. Fine, for example, there is a Eclipse project. You have a source folder under the project. If you have to add the jar files in the project, you right click on the project and go to the properties and add the jar files. Fine. Similarly in Ant, right, you have to have this build.xml which tells everything. For example, there is a property known as ws.home, that is workspace home. Right. This property tells you, has the value $dir. This means that the directory where your build.xml is lying. I have copied the build.xml in my current project. Okay, under the current project I have copied build.xml. So ws.home variable, the value is $dir. This means that the base directory in which build.xml is lying is the path of the workspace on the machine. Okay, then there is another property known as ws.jars. This property holds the value that where all the jar files are lying. If you have a project, for example, if you have, we did module 7, we were reading Excel files and all. We added the jar files by going to the properties of the project and we added all the jars like this, right? You have to tell TestNG as well, where the jar files are lying. Okay, you have to tell Ant as well. I'm sorry, not TestNG. You have to tell Ant as well where the jar files are lying. You tell it by specifying this path. In this path, what I have done is that I have kept all the jar files at a common location, which I might be using in a project. Whether it can be a jar file like XML beans or DOM4j to read Excel files, or the jar file for Selenium, right? So you keep all the jar files over here. Test.destination. This is again a important property. Okay, I will talk about this in some time. All right, fine. The next property is test.source, which represents the source folder under the workspace. Okay, look, the thing is, this ws.home is a variable over here which represents the path of the project, the path where the project is lying. Fine. So under the project there is a source folder. Okay, this ws.home is also the same. So test.source represents the source folder of the project, and ng result, this property, represents the test output folder which is generated after the TestNG runs. Right. So these are the various properties in build.xml which you need to be aware of. Okay, when you take this file, when you download this file from your account, you just need to change the path of the jars in this file, nothing else. Right. Now in this jars path I have all the jars. Okay, I also have the TestNG jar file which is mandatory. Okay, you can download all these jars. The download link is in your account itself. Okay, and you can also get this build.xml from there. Now if you look at the next target, one of the targets over here is compile. In build.xml there are various targets. One of the target over here is compile, and now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to compile my project based on this target. So for that, first of all, open a command prompt. Fine. If you already have a command prompt open, just close it and open again, because when the command prompt opens, it loads all the environment variables which you have just changed. Okay, go to the directory where the project is lying. Fine. You can right click on the project and go to the project properties in Eclipse, and under resource you'll get the path of the project, the path where the project is lying. You copy that path, and on the command prompt you go to that path and give the command and compile. So when you give the command and compile, okay, the target compile will run. Now what does this target do? What is it all about? I'll tell you in some time. Let me show you what effects it brings. Right? When you give this target compile, the message you get is build successful in the end, and you refresh the project, you will see a test output folder. If you get a message that build has failed, then that means you have not included any of the jar files. One of the jar files is missing. Okay, and when the build is successful, you refresh the project, you will get the build folder. The build folder over here will have the class files corresponding to all the Java files which you have in your project. So compile target converts the class Java files into class files. It compiles your project. How does it do? Okay, first it deletes the test.destination directory. Look, out here we have a property known as test.destination, which represents the build folder under workspace home. Under the workspace there is a build folder. Okay, test.destination target actually represents that, the property represents that. So when you fire compile target, it first deletes test.destination. Once it's deleted test.destination, that is the build directory, it makes the build directory again mkdir test destination. It builds that directory, and then it compiles the complete project. The source folder is the source folder. It compiles it. It converts all the Java files into class files and puts it in the destination directory. Okay, so this is what compile target does. It deletes the build folder and makes it again with the class files. Now class files are executable files. They can be executed. And to execute, you have got another target known as run. This run target will execute the project as per the file testng.xml. You have to give the path of testng.xml over here. Right now, build.xml and testng.xml are in the same directory. Both these files are in the same directory. So you just write testng.xml, so build.xml will detect it. If it had been another different directory, you would have given the path. For example, in the page object model project, which we will be doing later on, in this we have got testng.xml inside source test resources folder. Okay, right. And inside this folder, this file is lying. And here is my build.xml. Fine. Now with build.xml, inside this build.xml, if you look at the run target, I have given the path as source test resources. Inside it, my testng.xml is lying. Okay, but over here we have directly in the directory itself, so you just need to write testng.xml and you run that. You fire the target and run. What it will do, it will run all the tests as per testng.xml. You will see that all the tests have executed. Fine. And if you refresh the project, you will have the test output also generated with the normal default TestNG reports. Okay, but what we want is we want to generate better reports. Better reports are XSLT reports. Fine. So how do you generate XSLT reports? To generate XSLT reports, you need to actually use this target. Make XSLT reports. Fine. To use this target, there are few things which you need to do. The first thing is that you need to get a file known as testng results.xsl. I'll get it from another project and paste it under my project. This XSL file has been given by people who made XSLT reports. You don't have to change this file. You don't need to know what is in it. Just keep it inside your project. And along with these along with this XSL file, you need to give the path of XSL file in style. Right now the XSL file is along with build.xml, so I have given the direct path just like testng.xml. And you need to have two jar files known as Saxon 8.7 and Sax liaison. You need to have these two jar files in your project in order to make XSLT reports under the path of jars. Okay, the same path which I had given in build.xml. Okay, under this path, you need to keep the files, the two jar files, saxon.jar and saxliaison.jar. That's it. So the first step is keep the XSL file. The second is make sure the XSL file path is correct. And third is keep the two jar files in your jars directory. And now go to the command prompt and fire the command and make XSLT reports. So what will happen is that this target will fire. It will make the directory XSLT reports inside your project, and XSLT reports, they are nothing but they are a wrapper around the default reports by TestNG. Look, these are the default reports by TestNG. So what this target does is that it goes and reads these reports and generates XSLT reports which are better reports. So XSLT reports are developed on top of the default TestNG results. Okay, so you need to have the TestNG results at least to generate the XSLT reports. Okay, so when you refresh this, you will have the XSLT reports. You refresh your project, this folder would be there. If you open this folder, inside it you will have index.html. You open this index.html in the browser and you will have XSLT reports. Okay, right. Now each and every test case would be defined over here. The errors and all will come up. Fine. You will also have a pie chart description. Every test case will tell you how much time it took to execute as well. But better reports than XSLT reports are extent reports. Okay, you can highly customize them, you can put logs in them and a lot of things. So now we will look at how to generate extent reports. Okay, and also how to generate a batch file for the project. Okay, so these are extent reports. Let me show you generation of extent reports now.